My parents told me that losing $105,000 would build character. What they didn't realize was that I had already used that character to lock them out of my life and my bank account 5 weeks ago. My name is Maya. I'm 21, a first-year law student, and for my entire life, I was the reliable one. On a Sunday in September, my mother called me home for a special pot roast dinner. I walked in to find my older sister Chloe crying on the sofa. My father didn't even wait for dessert. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Chloe is pregnant. Her fiancé left. We've decided to transfer your $105,000 law school fund to her. You're smart, Maya. You can take out loans. It builds character." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at the pot roast and said, "Okay." My mother actually smiled, thinking she'd won. She didn't know that "okay" was the most expensive word she'd ever hear. That money wasn't theirs. It was a gift from my grandmother Evelyn, specifically for my education. But in my family, there's a Chloe tax. If Chloe fails, I pay. I sat there watching them plan how to spend my future on Chloe's nursery. Then I hugged my mom and went upstairs to my old bedroom. I turned the lock and waited. I knew exactly what was coming next. This wasn't the first time my future was sold to fix Chloe's mistakes. It started when I was 9 years old, and it cost me exactly $90. I remembered asking for art classes. My mom said, maybe next year, because Chloe needed $150 horse riding lessons to boost her confidence. At 16, Chloe totaled her car while texting. My parents secretly pulled $7,000 from my savings to pay the deductible. Every time I succeeded, I was told I didn't need help. Every time Chloe crashed, I was the one who felt the impact. I started a secret Google Doc called Family Receipts when I was 14. I was tired of being the backup plan. My father thought he was the custodian of my account, but he forgot that in this state, a custodian has a very strict expiration date. 5 weeks before that dinner, I turned 21. Under the UTMA Law, that account legally became mine the second the clock struck midnight. I didn't tell them. I went to a lawyer and moved every single cent into a private brokerage account they couldn't see. I set up 2-factor authentication and a security question they'd never guess. First funeral attended? The answer? Grandma Evelyn, 2011. I was sitting on my bed when my phone buzzed like a warning shot. My father was in his study, 10 feet below me, trying to steal my money while I was still in the house. Unauthorized login attempt detected. Location, our home network. I heard the tapping of keys through the floorboards. Then silence. Then the chair scraped back. My mother's voice floated up. "Vincent, what's wrong?" His voice was tight, panicked. "The password isn't working." I smiled in the dark. He tried again, failed login number 2, 1 attempt remaining. My father screamed my name up the stairs like I was a disobedient child, so I counted to 10, smoothed my jeans, and walked down with the Navy folder that was about to end his empire. The dining room was a war zone. My father's face was the color of a heart attack. "What did you do to the account?" he roared. I set the folder on the table. It contained the gift letter from 2001, the statute section 21, and the fidelity transfer confirmation. "I didn't do anything, Dad. I just took legal possession of what belongs to me. You didn't ask to use my money. You decided to steal it. And you're 5 weeks too late." They tried to call me selfish for protecting my education, so I opened the folder to page 34 and showed them the $15,400 they had already stolen while I was a minor. I had the receipts, $2,850 for a medical expense in 2009 that never happened. $4,800 for educational materials in 2012 that I never saw. I found an email my father sent to the bank asking if he could use the fund for family emergencies. They told him no. He did it anyway. I told them, "You've been treating me like an ATM for 12 years. The bank is closed." I moved out that night, and for the next 3 years, my parents didn't send a single text unless they were asking for a loan. I lived in a 300-square-foot studio and worked 3 jobs while finishing law school. I was a library aide, a tutor, and a researcher. My parents stayed in their big house, raising Chloe's baby and drowning in debt. My mother told the family I was cold and difficult, but every night I studied, I felt Grandma Evelyn's gift protecting me. I wasn't just learning the law, I was learning how to make sure no one ever did this to another girl again. In 2025, I made the front page of the Law Tribune as a rising star, and my specialty was exactly what you'd expect: protecting inheritances from predatory families. I graduated cum laude and started at the Legal Aid Society, winning cases for people just like me. I had a 92% win rate because I knew exactly where people like my father hide the bodies and the bank statements. I framed my grandma's gift letter in my office as a reminder that gifts are gifts, not loans. I had protected over $4 million for my clients when my phone finally rang. It was my mother. We met at a cafe in December, and while my father looked 10 years older, my mother's hands were shaking as they sat across from me. They didn't come to apologize. They came because they saw my salary online. "We saw the article," my father started. They were broke. Chloe's fiancé had disappeared, and they were paying off a $35,000 high-interest loan they took out to support her. They wanted a small loan from me to save the house. Chloe was there too, looking exhausted. She said, "I thought you'd understand, Maya. Family sticks together." I realized they still didn't see me. They just saw a checkbook. My father threatened to sue me for defamation if I didn't help. So I just pulled out my phone and showed him IRS publication 970. "Go ahead, Dad," I said calmly. "But if we go to court, I'll have to mention those unauthorized withdrawals from 2012. Under tax law, those are taxable distributions. With the 10% penalty and 14 years of back interest, the IRS will take what's left of your house before the first hearing is even over." The silence at the table was absolute. For the first time in his life, my father was actually afraid of me. I didn't give them a cent, but instead, I did something that actually changed our family forever. I looked at my 7-year-old niece, Emma, who was sitting at the next table. She looked just like I did at that age: quiet, observant, and convenient. I walked over to her and whispered, "You will never have to earn love by being easy to manage. I promise." I set up a locked third-party trust for Emma's education that none of them can touch, not even me. I walked out of that cafe into the crisp air. I'm a successful lawyer. I have a family of friends who love me, and I finally have the character my parents wanted me to build. I just built it on my own terms. I thought the story was over when I walked out of that cafe. I thought the trust for Emma was the final period on a long, painful sentence. But 2 weeks later, a courier walked into my office with a package that required a biometric signature. It was from Thomas Weller, the lawyer who helped me secure my trust years ago. There was a sticky note on the front in his neat, legal handwriting. "Your grandmother said you'd know when it was time to open this. She told me to wait until you were strong enough to handle the whole truth." Apparently, making the front page of the Tribune was her signal. inside the package wasn't a bank statement or a deed. It was a digital voice recorder and an old, rusted key to a storage unit in a town my father always claimed he'd never visited. I drove to that storage unit at 2 a.m., the cold Massachusetts wind whipping around my car. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird as I slid the key into the lock. When the heavy metal door screeched open, I didn't find furniture or old clothes. I found a wall covered in news clippings from 1995, the year I was born, and a leather-bound ledger that made my $105,000 look like pocket change. But it was the last page of the ledger that stopped my breath. It was a letter from Grandma Evelyn to my father, dated the day she died. It started with, "Vincent, I know what you did to the other family. I know where the rest of the money went." I looked at the photo tucked into the back of the ledger. It was my father, 20 years younger, standing in front of a house that wasn't ours, holding a child that wasn't me or Chloe. If you want to know who that child is and why my father was so desperate to steal my inheritance to cover his tracks, subscribe for the next chapter. The truth is much darker than a college fund.